it just kind of like was like dark, like I was just somewhere else, but it was my eyes were closed, but it was like I was opening my eyes. And as my eyes felt like they were open, I saw Jesus, Buddha, and Mary. And in that moment, I knew. So when I saw them, I knew that there was something more. Hello, my name is Christina. I go by Christina Renee, and I am the host of the Conscious Conversations podcast. And the reason that I started that podcast is because I've had quite a journey in the past, we'll say, 15 to 20 years of going through many challenges that have led me to really diving in and finding out the truth about who we are. And so the podcast was born because of not just my experiences, but I know that there are many, many, many people out there that have been through their own journeys. And so the podcast was born to deliver content that reminds people of the truths of who we are. And so me, I believe that the truth is that we are a soul. We are not a human. We are a spirit, and we're having a human experience, and we are light, and we are love. So I went to treatment for the eating disorder in 2008. And when I left treatment, they had said you probably shouldn't drink or date for a year. So I didn't listen. After a month of being released, I was on a date and drinking. So 5 years I was trying to figure that out, I guess you could say. Sometimes I would try to stop, sometimes I wouldn't. And in March of 2012, I was a complete mess. I was very, very deep in all of my addictions. And what happened was I was really upset. I had gotten in a fight with one of my boyfriends. So I had multiple boyfriends at the time. And another boyfriend had left a bunch of narcotics in my house. And I was really upset, so I decided that I was going to just have some wine and take some pills and try to relax. Well, I took more than I should have. So what happened was I blacked out from too many substances, too high of a dose. And in that blackout, so I was not aware of this at the time, but in that blackout, I was texting friends and family that they should look for my soul as the sun was setting because I had taken 4 bottles of narcotics. So I was trying to take my life. Um, it wasn't a conscious decision though. Like I was in a blackout, but it was something I was doing. I was texting people. I did take the pills. I took 4 bottles of narcotics, but I wasn't conscious of that. Like I only came to understand that that's actually what happened when I went back and read the actual text conversations. So I didn't actually, I didn't actually die. I took 4 bottles of narcotics and I was blacked out for 3 days. So in this time, I was taken to the hospital. I was put on watch. I was also taken to a psych ward. And in that psych ward was when I came to. So I came out of the blackout. And there was this woman there, and she was screaming that she had pedo pants, and I was like, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. So I made a decision to cooperate. I had a friend who was a channel, and she flew out to Phoenix from Texas, and she was doing a session, and I don't know what was happening. I We were in my living room. I was sitting on the floor, with her, and it just kind of like was like dark, like I was just somewhere else, but it was my eyes were closed, but it was like I was opening my eyes. And as my eyes felt like they will open, I saw Jesus, Buddha, and Mary. And in that moment, I knew. So when I saw them, I knew that there was something more, that there was something bigger, and that there were actually angels, guides, ascended masters that were looking out for me. And I didn't have this awareness then, but now I can look back and see that they were with me and they were the reason that I didn't die. Um, so so it really, I don't know how long it lasted. It was probably just, a couple of seconds, but I just remember being in awe and knowing that I was held. And in that moment too, this connection that I had to Jesus, I was how when I was raised Catholic, it was Jesus that I could trust. I couldn't trust the Catholic religion. I couldn't trust my parents or, the priest or whoever else was, an authority figure within that religion, but I could trust Jesus. And so what happened after that, it was like I closed my eyes, so it went dark again. And then as I opened my eyes, I was back in my living room. And for the first time in my life ever, and this was not something that I had a conscious thought about, this was completely led by spirit. And I don't know if it was Mary or Buddha or Jesus or all three of them, but I looked at my friend and I told her that I had a problem. I said, I think I have a problem. I think I should stop thinking. I don't think it's healthy for me to do that. And that was the first time that I had ever admitted that I had a problem. And so about 2 days later, literally right after this, I was contacted by another friend and invited to A Course in Miracles. And so I know now, I had no awareness at the time, well, maybe a little bit, but not like how I do now. I know that Jesus was guiding me to A Course in Miracles because that eventually led me to getting sober and uh, into recovery from all my addictions. So when I saw Jesus, Buddha, and Mary, they appeared in front of me as if they were like beings, like in a human form. They looked like they were in human form, as if they were in my living room with me, but we were just in a dark space. They didn't actually have any words at the time. However, as I so that happened in March, and so the whole summer I was focused on staying sober, but what also happened was that I went all in to learning about understanding and connecting to Christ consciousness. And I do feel like, so every time I would go into meditation that summer, because I was very into meditation and I had a meditative practice, whenever I'd go into meditation, they would appear smaller, more up in the air, like around here, but they would appear. And so every time they appeared, I knew that they were with me. I knew that they were holding me. I had never really cared about the religion I was brought up in, but there was a moment where it was like I was downloaded with the poem Footprints, the Footprints poem about the one that has where Jesus says, look at those footprints. When you see two, that's when I was walking beside you, but when you only see one, that's when I was carrying you. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it, but there was a meditation where I saw the poem and I could feel that. And just to give you some context too, this part, leading up to this part of my life, there were a lot of, we'll say, very reckless and very dangerous situations that I had been in, like taking 4 bottles of narcotics from an unconscious standpoint, right? And so when I saw that poem, I felt him holding me. I knew that he had carried me through so many parts of my life, not just the overdose or, this specific meditation or March 16th, 2012 when he appeared in my living room. Like I knew. And it took actually a little while beyond that to get sober for real. But like, I didn't just get sober right away. Most people would think like if you overdose, sobriety would be the next step, but that wasn't my case. It took another year and a half. But what happened was Jesus led me to A Course in Miracles. So he didn't tell me anything, but he had a friend call me and say, come join this group with me. So I went to A Course in Miracles, and as soon as I started to learn some of the text, it just felt true. I couldn't understand actually any of the language in this book, but I felt it as truth, like it resonated as the truth of the universe. And the other synchronicity around that is that I would say 90% of everyone that was in this Course in Miracles group was actually sober. They had recovered from addictions, from drug and alcohol addiction. And so as I was in these groups, I would look at these people and I would ask them questions. And they would take me to meetings and offer, And so while it wasn't something that they said to me right there, it was they showed me that they're a presence in my life. And then they continued to guide me. And it's interesting because as I share this experience right now, going back to 2012, I wouldn't tell you that Jesus showed me to the Course in Miracles. I wouldn't have said Jesus led me to sobriety. But in hindsight, when I look at the whole picture from this viewpoint, 11 years later, I can see that it was him right there, right next to me, guiding me. And another thread through that was Mary, the Mother Mary. So I've had a lot of trauma, we'll say, around from my parents, specifically my mother. And several times throughout this journey, when I need that maternal nurturing, I know that Mary's there. It's like she doesn't say anything to me, but I know she's there. And I see that vision that I had on March 16th, but 2012. And I know that she's holding me as if I was her child too. So at the time when I saw Jesus, Buddha, and Mary, they looked like what you would traditionally see or hear them described to be. So Jesus was in the middle, and it wasn't like crystal clear. So it wasn't completely like when I grew up, we had this picture of Jesus with, the blue eyes and the blonde hair, and there was this halo around him, like a glowing halo, and he had very dark hair, kind of long. His skin seemed darker. Um, I don't remember the eyes, but they did seem light. Maybe like a bluish green, but not like light blue like in the pictures from when I was a kid. And Buddha was like the traditional kind of like the more chubbier, laughing kind of Buddha with the big belly, and there was a very cheerful energy coming from Buddha. And Mary was exactly like the pictures I saw in church. So there was a glowing light around her. She was very feminine. She had a necklace on, very dark hair, and it was like she was holding her hands kind of like this, like offering something. I don't know what she was offering, but that's what they looked like. And they were in that moment, they were about the same size as me. They were normal human size. They weren't tiny little figures or huge either. They were the same. And that is one of the messages I continue to get from Jesus today, is that we are all the same. I can achieve what he achieves. Like we are we are all the same. So that's what it was like. Later on, as they appeared in my meditations, they were smaller. They still looked the same, but they were more up here, kind of like floating rather than at the same level as I was. One of the steps in the 12-step work in AA is step 3, and that is I decided to surrender my power over to the power of God, to the care of God. And as I took that step, it was really hard, actually, sometimes because I want to hold on to my self-will, my ideas, I want to run the show. And so to actually really surrender to God's will for me, and to believe that God's will for me is something good was a struggle. But whenever I had something happen, we'll say, uh, so I'll give you some details. So after I got sober, I had this baby, and his dad took me to court. And in this court case, there was, a lot of different things that happened, including my lawyer not showing up on the day that we were supposed to have our survival. And I didn't spend any time prepping for court. I prayed for 3 days leading into court. I didn't study the law. I didn't read the law. I didn't have arguments. Like, I had nothing. I just prayed. And when my lawyer didn't show up, the judge said, well, maybe I can handle this because I was asking for a continuance. And the judge decided that she would just talk to me and the child's father. And she asked me a question. And out of nowhere, I started talking. And I was citing the law. Like somehow, some way, God was speaking through me. And I do want to say, in situations like this, I would always ask, God, please move my mouth. Tell me what you want me to say. Like, please guide me. Like, go before me, actually. Don't just guide me, go before me. And in this court case, when I was asked this question by this judge, I just started to cite the law. And it went in my favor. And I remember having this experience where I'm saying these things that I've never heard of or read, and kind of watching by, whoa, that's spirit in action, like for sure. So that was one instance. Another instance was shortly, 6 months, 7 months after I was pregnant, I lost my job. And I had never been fired before. I'd never been laid off. And here I was, following this program, finally getting my act together, and I got laid off. And I just remembered my sponsor, saying, just ask for God's will. Just ask for God's will. And so I made it a point for 3 days. For me, it's always three, but 3 days. three whatever. 3 nudges, 3 days. And so for 3 days, I was freaking out, but I would set a timer, and every hour I would ask God, what is your will for me? Please make it obvious, make it clear. Please make it gentle too, because this feels harsh. And everything worked out. I ended up being able to just not have a job and have my baby. I was hired to do photo shoots, so a lot of people like to photograph pregnant women, so I was hired and paid to do that. So everything just worked out, and that was because I had built that connection and asked. So I do, in this day and age, I do get premonitions, I do feel things, I do sense things, but I wouldn't ever go as far as saying that, God gives me messages about the future, but whenever I ask and let go, it's not even like he's waiting to show me. It's like he's already showing me. It's up to me to surrender because God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. He wants all of us to be happy, joyous, and free. Bing, bing. So when we do surrender to his will, we're not going to lose. So as far as my understanding of God, I know a lot of my clients that I work with, a lot of people that come into the program can be really upset or not believe that there's a God because of horrible things that happen, like the pandemic and hurricanes and devastating things, like just really bad things. And the way that I see this from my connection with God, from the studying that I've done with the Course in Miracles, from the interviews that I've done in my podcast, is that I don't believe that God is saying, I'm going to make bad things happen, right? Like, I truly feel there's a couple of layers to why we experience things that are bad or tragic or devastating, like the pandemic or floods or, really bad things. So I see that we have our own beliefs. So our inner world, our outer world reflects our inner world. So the things that we see, the things that we believe, it creates our reality. So there's one layer to it. So if we believe bad things are going to happen to us, we're going to create that because that's where our focus is shifted. Now we also have a collective mind, I guess you could say. And so collectively, we can co-create things in a way, and our beliefs, our perceptions will tell us whether they're bad or good. So in the instance of the pandemic, what was actually true for me, and I don't really like talking about it this way because I don't want to sound like I'm better than anyone. But as soon as I heard about the pandemic, I immediately tuned into the level of fear that the pandemic brought. And I believe, because of the Course in Miracles and so many other things, that all illness is just a condition of our mind. So if I'm sick, if I'm hurt, if I'm struggling with something, it's really more of something that I'm believing. And it's not so much actually a physical thing, because our bodies are vessels for communication. So in the case of the pandemic, I immediately said, oh wow, this is something that's going to catalyze a lot of fear. And when we're in fear, we're susceptible to the thing. So when it comes to like suffering or this idea of evil, based on my experiences, and I can only speak from my experiences, and I can only speak from what I have picked up from those I've been mentored by or those I've interviewed and what I have actually studied. I personally do not believe that there is such a thing as evil. I believe that we are all light, that, and I don't believe that God is a separate entity from us. I believe that God is the all. So I'm a part of God. You're a part of God. We're all a part of God. And when I use the term God, what I'm referring to is the source that connects us all and that powers us all. And so it's kind of a tricky thing when we start getting into, evil or suffering, especially being raised Catholic and fearing that everything was the devil tempting me. I've had a lot to overcome through this, and what I believe around this is that there's no such thing as evil, and we're all just different expressions of source. So in this reality, if we're met with someone that we think is bad or doing bad things. So let's say someone who's motoring someone or, hurting them in a really bad way. And I don't know how candid I can get here, so I'm trying to keep it like kind of light, but uh if we're met with someone like that, it's more of a role that we're playing for each other. So if I, on the other side, said that I want to come here and experience sexual assault, someone, a soul that loves me, that's part of my soul family, just said, "Hey, I'll do that. I'll go down there and play that role for you." Hey. And so it's more of like from that view. So here in this reality, we are very, very dense and it's very thick and we're veiled. We forget. But on that side, from that view, everything just is. It's all mutual, it's all love, it's all light, it's all perfect. And from that view, we have an understanding of all of it. And we can see clearly that this is just the play or the movie or, the characters. And so, not to say that in this reality we're not going to feel suffering, because I have. I have a lot. I have felt plenty of suffering. But I also learned really early on in sobriety that every experience I have, I'm having to help another, to be able to guide someone else through it. So the way I see it is that I have to suffer sometimes if I'm going to be able to guide someone through it. So if I haven't actually been through this particular experience, so in the example of addiction and recovery, we were taught to pick our sponsors and say, they have what I want, so I'll do what they did. I can't help someone through getting sober, through that process, if I actually haven't experienced it for myself. And so the way I see suffering is that I'm having this experience, one, because I asked for it, two, because I have something to learn from it, and then on the other side of it, I'm actually going to be guiding and helping someone else through it. What I learned from my experience of overdosing and then seeing Jesus, Buddha, and Mary is a lot. There's so much. It would probably take another hour to really dive in to everything that I've learned. But to sum it up, first and foremost, I learned that I have a part. And it's not just me that has a part, it's everybody. Even if we think that we don't deserve to be here or that we don't want to be here, because more of the time than not, it's we don't want to be here. and and that does stem from the idea of not deserving. But we all have a part. Like every single person has a part in this thing that we call reality. And there's no hierarchy at all. No one's better, no one's worse. And so we've all come here with a unique set of gifts or expressions or ways of being. And whatever it is that is yours is absolutely perfect. I am meant to be here. That's what I got. I am meant to be here. I didn't die, and I didn't die for a reason. And I can't believe that that reason I didn't die was just to suffer and not enjoy life. But from where I was in a complete state of hopelessness to where I am now and everything that has unfolded along the way, especially the last few years, you are so precious and divine and unique and you matter. And if all you can do is just sit like I have been for the past 5 weeks with a broken tibia. I, you are worthy. And that is exactly what you are supposed to be doing. And it's perfect and it's beautiful and it applies to everyone, every single person.